So last week I did a ranking of the smartest characters in Naruto, and while the video itself did pretty good and had a lot more likes and dislikes, I did get some flack about a certain character that was not on the top 5 list, which was Tobirama. So today I thought I'd make a video topic about this and discuss my stance on Tobirama overall and why I didn't put him in the top 5 list. First and foremost, I want to get this out of the way just in case there are people who may think this, but no, I don't hate Tobirama. In fact, I think he's downright one of the coolest characters in the series. There's not a single scene, specifically in the war, that I ever get tired of seeing him in. I mean, when he's on the scene, he means business. That's like 100% for sure. When it comes to his power, I mean, he is a Senju, and the Senju in the Warring States period were said to be the strongest amongst all the clashing clans. And if we put Madara and Izuna the strongest amongst the rival clan of the Senju, then scaling wise, it makes Tobirama stronger than all, if not most, of the Uchiha clan members at the time, since Tobirama was able to beat Izuna. And honestly, from that, one could even argue that he's relative to MS Madara. And on top of that, Tobirama was a Hokage, so even if I wanted to downplay him or say he's not that strong, I really couldn't because, I mean, let's be frank here, all the Hokage are tough as nails. Even Tsunade, who was arguably the weakest Hokage, was able to make Madara, of all people, retract his statement of Tsunade being a weak woman. I have a ranking of the Hokage video on my channel, so I'll link that in the description below, but the point is that one way or the other, no one could really downplay Tobirama even if they wanted to, as the Hokage themselves are no joke. When it comes to his speed, Tobirama is remarked by Madara as being the fastest shinobi to ever live, and while Madara definitely did hate Tobirama, you could definitely tell that Madara respected Tobirama's ability, at least to some extent. And while Minato is clearly superior at teleporting, one could make the argument that he's still as fast as Minato. The statement that Tobirama makes in the war arc about Minato being fast has been translated a couple different ways. The anime translates it one way, and the manga translates it another way, but one of them says that he's faster, and one says that he's better at teleporting, so if it's the latter, then it may simply imply that he's just better at using Flying Raijin in general, like when it comes to using the markers and the seal, but it's up to interpretation. In any case, it still means that Tobirama, at the very least, is relative to Minato's speed, which is clearly no joke. His strength and chakra definitely can't be downplayed either. For starters, he is a Senju, like I said earlier, and it's safe to say that the Senju boast a pretty large chakra supply, as we hardly ever see Hashirama, Tobirama, or even Tsunade ever really tire out from chakra exhaustion. I mean, Tsunade kinda, but when she does, it's when she's fought for a really long time, like against Madara or Orochimaru, or when she's healing hundreds of people at the same time like she did against Pain. His strength is actually pretty unreal. With just casually putting chakra through the wall, he put a huge dent inside the Uchiha clan hideout. And now, of course, Hashirama did way more damage, but it also implies that Tobirama was the second strongest person in the room. Maybe you can make a case for Orochimaru since he was able to bind Tobirama, and Minato because of having KCM at the time, but still, it means that if either one of those two didn't have those advantages, Tobirama would be stronger than the other two Hokage, plus all of Taka, including EMS Sasuke. I mean, let's be honest, even if you're watching the anime or reading the manga version of that scene, everybody in the room, aside from Hashirama, was pretty much crapping their break at the sight of Tobirama charging up his chakra. So, yeah, to say that his chakra and his strength physically just as unreal is no joke. On to his genius, Tobirama has created some of the most influential jutsu in the series. One, of course, is being the Flying Raijin, which pretty much made Minato the biggest threat in the Third Great Ninja War, and even made a flee on sight warning be issued on him. He's also created the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which, just like with Minato with the Flying Raijin Jutsu, becomes Naruto's signature jutsu, and pretty much was the foundation for him learning the Rasengan and the Rasen Shuri. A jutsu that I don't ever really see him get credit for making also is the Tandem Paper Bomb, which the second I saw it blew my mind, especially of who he was using it against. And arguably the most important jutsu that he created was the reanimation jutsu, and even if we assume that his version wasn't as efficient as Orochimaru's at the time of the Konoha Crush arc, it's still crazy impressive that he was able to create it in the first place. I mean, with all this said, you could really call Tobirama a scientist with all the jutsu that he created, because I mean, Orochimaru pretty much hails himself as a scientist because he wants to create all the jutsu under the sun. And here's Tobirama just making, again, some of the most influential jutsu in the series. Now, here's where I get into where I didn't have him on the top 5, like, smartest characters list. The first and probably the most simplest thing is that I wasn't just judging genius off of strategy and tactics alone. As I said in the beginning of that video, things like philosophy, wisdom, and tactics and strategic level were all combined in decision making. Now, that's not to say that Tobirama isn't wise, because he definitely is. I mean, I don't think that the people of the village or Hashirama would be okay with him being Hokage if he wasn't. But I just think he made a few bad calls as a Hokage, at least in my. Orochimaru kinda even lets credence to this when he says that many of the policies and the jutsu that he developed cause problems down the line. Most notable of which is antagonizing the Uchiha clan and moving them to the outskirts of the village by way of monitoring them and keeping a closer eye on them. Of course, I understand his reasoning, especially after the whole Madara incident, but even still led to the Uchiha clan not being able to trust Senju and by extension the leaf higher up. And if we really wanted to get down to it, one could even make the case that Tobirama was the start of the Uchiha clan just simply not trusting the village as a whole and created the whole problem for Itachi, leading him to, assassinate the whole Uchiha clan. I'm not putting the spotlight like specifically on Tobirama because again, Hiruzen made some pretty bad calls, but it is safe to say that Tobirama probably could have been the one that started. Another bad call that he made was creating the reanimation jutsu in the first place. I mean, while it's still crazy impressive that he was able to create it, there's no question that it caused problems. I mean, both the Fourth Great Ninja War and the Konoha Crush arc are prime examples of that. Heck, one could argue that had it not been for that jutsu, Hiruzen may not have lost to Orochimaru. I mean, I'm not saying every Hokage is perfect. Like I said earlier, Hiruzen himself made some pretty bad calls. But I guess the point is that maybe Tobirama didn't think a few things through before making some decisions. Now, those alone aren't the only reasons why he wasn't on the top 5 list. If you noticed, the ones that I had on there were characters that have more feats to show off their genius and their wisdom. Maybe you can make a case for Minato, but I feel like with his conversation with Naruto and his fight with Tobi and the Raikage, plus his feats in the war, that we have enough feats from him to make a placement for him on that list. With Tobirama, he's barely in the series, and we really didn't have much to go off of showing his wisdom or his philosophy, as well as his battle IQ. Only really statements of the jutsus that he created. I mean, his honorable mention case is kind of the same thing with Madara, because even though Madara is hailed as a genius, we don't really see enough of him, at least in terms of showing off his mental acuity, to really make a statement. All we really have to go off him is how much of a tank he is, taking out the 4th Division and pretty much beating the 5 Kage. Just by sheer power alone, not so much mental acuity. I mean, not to say there isn't mental acuity in those fights, but let's be honest, it is just mostly Madara tanking every single attack that's thrown at him and just one-shotting people. Now, with all that said, I do believe I may have downplayed Tobirama in my list. I still am pretty confident in said list, but if I had to switch Tobirama with someone, I'd probably switch him with Orochimaru, which would put him at top 3. Again, I Orochimaru there because, like I said earlier, we have more feats of him to go off of. Even though you could say that, we didn't get to see him for majority of Shippuden, so he has arguably as much feats as Tobirama. Still, we see more of him in general in the series than we do of Tobirama, especially since even Orochimaru even said that the reanimation jutsu itself isn't even all that complex a jutsu, and that he was able to make it better than Tobirama's. Maybe argue. But to answer the question posed in the title and the thumbnail, do I think Tobirama is overrated? No, I do not think he's overrated. If anything, I think he's underrated. And like I said, I've been guilty of underrating him myself. I definitely think he's one of the strongest and smartest shinobi in the series. It's just, again, we don't get to see enough of him in the series to really show off his wisdom or his genius. I mean, I really hate to sound redundant on it. That is why I put him as an honorable mention and not on the top 5 list, because most of the people that were on the top 5 list, we see more chance them to show off their mental acuity and their wisdom. So I apologize for any of the Tobirama lovers out there. I really did not mean to downplay Tobirama at all. I think he's, again, one of the strongest and most intelligent shinobi to ever live. He's pretty much a scientist if you really want to get down to it. And for those of you who want to say that Tobirama was beaten by the Kinkaku force and use that as an argument of why he's not that strong, first of all, it's kind of implied that their team was either on a mission or coming back from one, so they probably weren't all in the best shape. And it's been debated on whether or not all the other ninja with the Kinkaku force were S rank or not, but they at least had to be Jonin level. And it's also said at this point that the brothers had already had some of Nine Tails chakra from being devoured by Kurama. So with all that into account, it's kind of easy to see how and why Tobirama alone could get overwhelmed. So yeah, that whole argument, I mean, that's a whole bunch of